Hi everyone, Vessel here, and I wanted to continue part 2 of this worksheet called Summarizing and Comparing Distributions. So let's dive right in here. This particular task is about flexibility ratings. So 500 randomly selected middle-aged men and 500 randomly selected young adult men were rated on a scale from 1 to 10 on their physical flexibility, with 10 being the most flexible. Their ratings appear in the frequency table below. For example, 17 middle-aged men had a flexibility rating of 1. So just giving you info on how to read it. And I will say, like, the most common mistake people make is that they'll use this number 17 as a data point, and they think that there's 17 somethings or 31 somethings, and those aren't data points. Those are frequencies of this number over here. So 17 men had a flexibility rating of 1. 17 middle-aged men. 4 young adult men had a flexibility rating of 1. So really common for students to misread this chart and to just make their display based off of wrong data. So that's the first thing to make sure you're careful about here. These are frequencies. And the other thing is you get to make a graph here and you get to choose how to display it. Because you have frequencies, it's actually kind of nice to make either like a histogram or a bar graph here. I think both of those work really, really well. I'm gonna make a bar graph, and the reason I'm gonna choose a bar graph is because I can put them side by side. So side by side is technically not a histogram because you have to have a continuous set of numbers for those. So this technically is going to be a bar graph. You know, another display that works really well is you could make a box plot. Box plots work great here too. Two bad choices would be either a stem plot or a dot plot. Those are bad because with stem and dots, those require you to put a data point for every single person. So you'd have to make 500 dots for each of these groups here, and that's just ridiculous. So while there's a lot of good choices, there's a couple of really bad ones as well. So in this case, like I said, I'm going to do this with a bar graph, and it's really just because of the nice visual. I think you'll like this one too. So I've already got my axis drawn out here. So this is a flexibility rating. So these are going to go from 1 to 10. And along the y-axis is frequencies. So this should give us a pretty good display. And really the whole point of the display is to be able to see shape a lot easier than if you don't have a display. So with this particular case, I'll use middle-aged men. Well, actually, before I jump into that, let me notice on this chart that we have all numbers that are 2 digits. The biggest it goes up to is 93. So as long as my frequencies cover up to 93, I'll be in good shape. So if I count by tens, it should work all right. 10. And because I'm doing this without graph paper, it definitely is a little sloppier than what I would like, but this is going to work fine. Again, the point of it is that I can see the shape, and even though I'm not using a ruler for every single point here, it should work out okay. If you have graph paper, it might look a little nicer, or even using a program to make your display. That actually will work okay too. Along the bottom, my flex ratings. So I just want to get the numbers 1 through 10 down here. 1, and so on. Oh, that was maybe too big of a gap. And I don't actually have to be too careful about how far I space things out because it's not a number line. I'm just looking at it as a category. So like the number 1, it's a category here. I'm not thinking, it is a number, but it's not like a continuous number here like a histogram has. So it's really just a bunch of people got a number 1 and a bunch of people got a number 2 and so on. So this should work okay here. 17 is our first one here. So let's just do something like that. 31 twos. 3s, there's 49. Yeah, it gets a little harder. The further I get away from the axis, the more challenging it is to line it up. 4s, 71. About here. 70. 87. About here. 78. 54. Feels a little squished on this end. I don't like it. There, we'll make it all right here. 34 and 9. Okay. And the reason, again, I space these out, I want to use a side-by-side display here. Again, that's why it's not a histogram technically. This is a box, or sorry, a bar graph. There were 4 here, so you can get a really quick comparison at each value here. 17 of these. 29. 39. 54 5s about here. And real quick, it's starting to see, it probably makes sense too if you think about the situation for a minute. Like the middle-aged men have more frequencies for these lower flexibility ratings, and the younger men are lower here, and they're going to end up flipping at the upper end of this display here. There's 69 here, 6s, 83, 7s. Oh, went a little too high. About here. 93 8s, 73 9s, and 39 10s. Yeah, about there. Okay. So, even for maybe a slightly better, here's our young men. It would probably look a little nicer if I colored them in just to get a more obvious difference in these things, but I'm just gonna leave that off for now just to save some time here. So anyway, one thing I can tell real quick is that the shape of both of these things are a little bit different. So the pink one, the middle-aged man, this one is much more symmetric. You can sort of see more balance. It's kind of centered a little bit more in the middle, and its 6 has the mode, I guess, but it's a lot more symmetric for sure than the young men. Young men peaks here at 8, and then there's this tail on the left side. So this young men display is clearly skewed left. And the middle-aged man is much more symmetric. And I'm even going to go as far as, let's just call this one approximately symmetric. So that's going to come in handy for our next part B here. Compare these distributions. So just like last time, we're going to do the big 4. We're going to do shape. We're going to do outliers. We're going to do center. We're going to do spread. And in this particular case, I think what we need to make sure we're careful about is, I think how we're going to do center and spread is going to be quite a bit different than from before. Because in the previous one, we had mean and median given to us. We could just write them right down. Spreads were pretty easy to get. Like they were written down for us too. So we didn't have a whole lot of effort there. What's easier, I think, in this one is shape. So because of the fact that we got this bar graph, I'm gonna start with shape. And something like this is great. I'm going to get it in context, so I have to mention it's about flexibility ratings. If I just say young men are skewed left, that's a ridiculous sentence. And I get what you're trying to say, but it's not about young men being skewed left. It's about the flexibility ratings of young men having a skewed left distribution, not the young men themselves. So let's get that going here. So the shape, the distribution of young men is skewed. Sorry, young men. I almost did it too. Young men flexibility ratings is skewed left, whereas the adult, or sorry, middle-aged is what I want. Middle-aged men have a fairly symmetric distribution. Alright, so that takes care of shape. Next up is outliers, and in this particular case, it's totally possible for us to go get the outliers. And I'm going to give a demonstration on that, I think, in a second, but I actually feel really confident saying that there are not going to be outliers in this particular distribution. I know that there aren't going to be outliers just because of the really small limited range and the fact that there just doesn't even appear to be anything that seems very extreme. So I'll show you, I'll prove this, but we don't have to actually do the calculation if we know that there aren't any outliers. So we can say this: there are no outliers in either distribution. And maybe the next one, like center. So center is one of those where we typically just go to mean or median because those are the two most common and they actually work the best in almost all situations. And in this case, it is possible to do all three. I think there's some that are just harder to do. There's more work. And I'll describe what it would be like. But you could actually get your mean for either of these two, because what you could do is you could just take, 17 ones. You could multiply those together. There were 31 times, so you can multiply those together, and you just add all those up, and then divide by 500. And is it going to take a ton of time? No, it wouldn't, but it's not something I really want to work on right now. If I got some other stuff that I can use that's easier, I'd rather do something that's a little bit quicker and easier. So I will say mean is possible, but I wouldn't recommend it. Median is another one that works really well. Median's a little bit easier here. The median is going to be when you get to the middle number. So median, it's not incredibly difficult, but it's a little more irritating. It's irritating because you don't have them totaled already, so you gotta have to total them as you go. So if you were to start here at 1, I'm just going to give an example with the middle-aged men. So I have 17 here. If I have these 31 here, I'm now up to 48 people that are 2 or under, just adding them up as I go. Add on another 49, I'm up to 97 people, not to the median yet. I'm looking, remember it told us there are 500 men here, and if I add these up as I go, I'll get to the 500th. But 71 is going to put us at 167. I'm still not to the median. 70 more, what's that, 237. Okay, I'm getting close. 250 is the median. Excuse me. So this next number is going to put us over 250 people. This is where the median is. So the median has to be 6 for this particular group. Let's just add this up real quick. So that'd be 314. Excuse me again, sorry. And then if I add in another 78, I'm going to keep going, why not here. So we'll be up to 392. Add 54 more, 46, 34, I must have made a mistake. Where the heck did I screw up? Oh, I made 2 mistakes. So I lost a kid, or a middle-aged man here. I just added 70, not 71. So this has an 8. And it was this one, 25, 93, 47. There we go. 80 or 91. This would have been 403. Well, that's kind of a mess. Sorry for screwing that up. Should have done this ahead of time. But you get your 500 men, and really all I wanted to be able to say is, like, where's the middle? But the other thing the reason I kept going, you can also see where the quartiles are. So if 250 is the median, half of that's going to be where the quartiles are. So if you go to where 125 was passed, Q1 has got to be a 4 here. And maybe just to double check, I'm going to go back up this way. So here's my maximum, here's my minimum, and here's my Q3. If I go here and start at 9 plus 34 is 43. Up here I'm up to 97. Adding 78, this is the number where I'm going to pass 125 people. So Q3 would have been at the 375th person if I would have been counting this way, or if I count back up, it's where 125 is. So Q3 is 7 for this middle-aged man. And here's the whole point in this. So it's not incredibly difficult to get the median. I can write about that for my center. But the best, really, in this case, and this is super rare, by the way, the best choice is the mode. And almost never is that the case, but we actually have a mode that's useful. The mode is 6. That's the one that occurred the most. So real quick comparison here. Mode is 87 for the middle-aged men. Sorry, the mode is 6 with 87 men. at the middle age group, and it's for 93 men they had an 8 for the young men. So the mode is an 8 for that group. So it's a really great measure in this case. The mode for the middle-aged men. Oh, sorry, can't see what I'm marking here. The mode for the middle-aged men is a flex rating of 6, and it is 8 for the young men. Again, mean is fine. If you did mean, mode is probably the quickest and easiest, and median's not that incredibly difficult either. So median would have worked well as well also. And then finally spread. So with this, I think the easiest one is definitely range. Range is the quickest. You get both of those numbers real fast. So the range for both distributions is 9. Maybe it's not that interesting, but it's the quickest and fastest measure of spread to get for sure, because 10 minus, and that hopefully is clear, but 10 minus 1, that's the max minus the min, it was 9 in both cases. So the range is really quick and easy to get there. The other one that's actually pretty easy and quick to get is the IQR. So IQR is another one. I got it for the the middle-aged men. It's the IQR is 3. We could check the other one too, and I think I can do it pretty quickly here. Kind of figure out where that 125 mark is in both cases here. So 4 plus 17, add another 29 people, or up to 50. Add 39 more, add 54 more. I have just passed Q1. So Q1 is 5 for this group. And then go back the other way and get it this way. So it's 39 plus 73 is 112. And then add 93 more. Here's where Q3 is. So Q3 minus Q1, IQR is 3. IQR is 3 in this case as well. So another fairly quick measurement is the IQR. And in both cases is 3 for both also. Sorry about that, I need a glass of water. So anyway, thank you for checking this one out. I know that was a little bit long, watching me fumble through some addition here. Sorry about that. So anyway, thanks for checking this out. Again, the big 4: shape, outlier, center, spread. Make sure you do that for each of these problems, and have some, I guess, flexibility in how you do these tasks, because it's not always the same way. It's just the same 4 things that you need to talk about. So hopefully this is helpful, and thanks for watching.